Thanks for tapping into Untapped CAG podcast, where we look at different perspectives of sobriety and mental health so that you can take something and implement it into your own life. Where we only believe there's only one right way to sobriety, which I said that like 6 times there, but it's the way that works for you. That's it. I'm RJ Zimmerman, and I am excited to be joined today by copywriter, ghostwriter, solopreneur, ADHD person, and my friend, Mechi. How are you doing today, Mechi?
Hi, RJ. Thank you for having me. I'm super stoked to be here. Super glad. Basically, this is my highlight for today.
Well, that makes two of us because I recently went on your podcast and it was a ton of fun just to be able to talk with you for that amount of time. And I feel like we could talk for like 4 hours, like just riffing with one another and having a really good conversation. So it's always fun catching up. But for those who don't know who you are, could you give us a little introduction into who Mechi is?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, if I sound strange or anything like that, that's because I'm from Argentina, Buenos Aires in particular. I'm a copywriter, like you say. My niche in copywriting is personal development, personal growth, and the health and wellness realm. And there's a reason why I chose those niches to become a copywriter and a marketer. And that's because I myself struggled with that so much, as anyone else who listens to your podcast and has ADHD or has had issues with alcohol or anything, like smoking. For me, that was the case. Smoking and binge eating. I feel like the other day I was just actually I wrote a blog about it, that for some reason, like I always understood the meaning behind the if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. But I actually understood it to a level like it touched me, because life has given me many lemons, like too many. And I actually, my lemonade turned out to be my business. So, I have Hashimoto's disease, I have ADHD, PCOS, which means I struggle a lot with hormones, and ADHD plus like hormonal issues is really not a good cocktail, let's say. So I had to learn a lot for myself, like how to take care of my body. And also for anyone out there, and I imagine from your, the people who listen to you, you should have plenty who are also like us, ADHDers or autistic. And we have issues like regulating appetite and other things. And for me it was the binge eating and gaining weight, and then also struggling my entire, like, the teen from when I was like 13, like super young, until I was almost like 19, dealing with eating disorders because I was heavily bullied at school. So, with all that background, I was like, okay, I can either sit here and cry and not change my life, or I can try to change my life. So I did. And, when I started, becoming this new person that I'm still, trying to find, because of course no one's perfect, and not, no journey is linear, and you keep learning and you keep rediscovering yourself, and you keep bettering yourself. I learned so many things along the way, the things that worked for me. I read many books, listened to I don't know how many hours of podcasts, read like peer reviews, studies, found out I had Hashimoto's, on my own. And so yeah, it's been a long road that brought me here. And then being I studied to become a translator. That's why I speak English, because my native language, as you can tell, is Spanish. But I was like, I could be, I could still be a translator, but I could also be a creator. And I'm really creative, and I like writing for other people, or pretend I'm someone else. I'm not like someone who's cooler than me. And so I learned about copywriting and ghostwriting. I was like, I love this. This is fun. So I started learning, I took courses, I read the books, I did the entire thing. And then I started to niche down because I wanted to actually love what I do and have, a niche that I feel like it's easy for me to write, because it's like I'm speaking to myself, or the past self, or even sometimes the future self I want to become. So yeah, basically that's it. Long story short.
Right. And that's the question that it's like, okay, how do I sum up my life? But you started a podcast, and it's really about, introducing people with ADHD and like entrepreneurship, and really looking at building your business and how there's different levels of challenges that come with that. Whereas with let's say, honestly, we call them normies, but neurotypicals, they just don't necessarily understand how the brain and some of the challenges that we have. What led you to start that podcast?
Well, it's actually a fun story. So the thing is, sometimes it's hard to find your people, or people who vibe with you. Um, in real life, unless you go to many events and stuff like that. We don't have much of that here in Argentina, because I don't know, it's not like the US that it's so like, heavy on entrepreneurship and stuff like that. So networking is not very common here. So it's like, what can I do? Like, how can I spark interesting conversations? And this is, for me, podcasting is also feels kind of like therapy. I actually had like discoveries from talking to
Yep.
people on my podcast.
Same.
And because podcasts have helped me so much. And I'm talking about every single type of podcast, not just like, mental health podcasts. I mean, I love like Huberman Labs. I don't know if you've ever heard it. Like,
Yep.
I have like sleeping issues, so that really helped. And, so many podcasts that like really helped me change my life. So I was like, I should be here because I love it. It's like, some people might be looking at us right now, but in many other cases, and this is me listening to a podcast, we're on their ears. It's like, it's so cool. It's like you get to hang out in a way, let's say, quote unquote, with amazing people that vibe with you and listen to them. And you're like a fly on the wall, but you also feel like you're part of the conversation. So that's basically the reason why I wanted to have the podcast. So it was a little selfish, but I just wanted to have interesting conversations with interesting people.
Yeah. And that's funny, because that's part of why I wanted to start, a podcast, because the podcast that helped me, exactly what you're talking about, being able to hang out. I've had a few people tell me it's like I'm hanging out with them in their living room. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry about that. Or maybe not. I don't know if that's cool or how you're having fun, but
RJ in the house.
that's right. what what is it when you have conversations with people that are really cool that have led you to some of these epiphanies that you've had about yourself?
One of them is I have a very hard time listening to people, and podcasting, hosting a podcast makes you listen. You have to become a good listener. So that's one thing I'm learning to, shut up a little more and actually listen to the other person. So that's great. That's something great about podcasting. Another thing that I learned from podcasting is, oh God, let me think. Is there's so many things. I have a terrible memory. That's why I have my journal right there. And I'm sure there's a ton of things there that I got from podcasts. But one of
I
the
have
things,
notebooks on
yeah,
notebooks on notebooks for a reason.
the notebook of the notebook of the notebook. I do
Yeah.
too. But no, yeah, the main thing is the listening for me, really listening to the other person. And the other thing too is practicing, being more, having more empathy, and
Mm.
really connecting with other people's, struggles, because it's not the same listening than actually talking to the person who's telling you their struggles, um and so on. And another great thing that I would say that really stood out to me from like talking to too many people is actually understanding where resilience comes from. I do consider myself a very resilient person because I had a difficult life, but sometimes you don't understand it until you actually talk through it. That's why therapy is great, but for those who cannot afford therapy or don't have the time, I think podcasts and journaling are like great options.
Yeah. And hearing you say that, there's so many times that I'll be coaching a client and I'll be talking about a story about myself. And I'm like, hold on one second. I tell you all the time about progress over perfection. And I'm telling this story, and there is a moment of progress that I haven't given myself credit for. I need to pause for a second and give myself credit for this. And it's the same thing with podcasts. Like, you talk about things exactly like you're talking about, and you start to, oh, I got to give myself credit for that. That is true. And on your, self-discovery journey that you've had, and being diagnosed with ADHD and Hashimoto's and you PCO.
PCOS, yeah.
I'm
There's
there
more to
listening.
add. I'm not gonna give you the full list because
Yeah.
then I'll become that person, that yeah, she's got this, and that, like, yeah.
But our interactions that we've had, and especially this one right now, you strike me as the person that hasn't used that as a, you get diagnosed and this is just who I am, but more of, this is an understanding of who I am, and this is where I can use this to be, not necessarily, treat myself better. I don't know why I'm dancing around that, but treat myself and understand myself better. And how have you been able to do that?
That's a good question. I think just trying to look at it. This is gonna sound weird, but I speak a lot by myself. Like, anyone, like, if I had a camera, if I were like in a program which I would never be on, but like Big Brother, people would be like scared of me because I'm like, I would look at myself in the mirror and have a conversation, like a full-on conversation with myself, or like I don't know, maybe I'm cleaning the house and I'm like just talking aloud, like it's as if I'm like talking to myself. And the reason why I do that is because for me it's very important, and I think I'm built this way because I've always been like this, that but we chat on like almost a weekly basis whenever we have the time, and we jump on a call every Friday. And I think that's a great exercise. But when you don't have that, back and forth from other people, and this because every time I have a problem or something, I tell it as it is, and I'm always asking you guys for your opinions, because I do value having diversity of opinions, because I think that's the way to find the right one. It's not like, yours is better than someone else's or better than mine. I think that when you gather information, that's when you actually, get to the root cause of whatever actually works, right? So you kind of do your research. And for me, what I do to actually not label myself, because I'm not a label. In the end, I'm just me. And I don't believe in labels, which is why I was like, when you asked me for a quick intro, I was like, should I say I'm a copywriter? Because that is not a label. Maybe, in, I don't know, 10 years time, I'm no longer a copywriter. So that no longer defines me. I'm just me. And I think that ever evolving or ever changing, it's a better use of the word, because I don't think that people just evolve. I do think that we have ups and downs. So I think that just like talking to other people, or if you don't have that, talking to yourself, even if you look crazy doing that, you find the way to separate yourself from the actual issue. And I'm gonna tell you something that's I've never told this to anyone. It sounds super weird, but I have like 3. By the way, I don't have like dissociative personality disorder or something like that. Sometimes I do dissociate, but not in the level of like I have different personalities.
Right.
I developed different personalities because what I'm going to tell you why, and this is also the reason why I became a copywriter. So for some reason, I always struggled understanding people and social interactions. So I had to learn it to actually understand that. So I began like, watching like charisma videos and like how to read faces, because I was, I didn't come with that chip, let's say.
Well, you have ADHD, and that's something that we tend to
Yeah,
struggle
but
with.
do we all? I thought that was like
Um,
more of an autistic trait, but maybe we do
yeah,
struggle with that too.
and that's where like that overlap is of the neurodivergence, where sometimes, yes, some of us struggle more than others, but that is not uncommon, I will
Yeah,
say.
for sure. Yeah, sometimes I'll have girlfriends of mine being like, girl, are you kidding me? Don't you realize that, that dude was actually like hitting you on or something like that? I'm
Oh,
like, no,
I
like I need it.
yes,
I actually need you to tell me because otherwise I don't get it. So I
that
had to
happens
study
all the
that.
time to me. Like there's,
Oh my
I'll
God,
tell
of
you this
course
quick
is that.
story. I was in a circle with 7 friends, and one of them was my girlfriend. All right. And this lady comes in and goes into the middle of the circle, turns around, looks at me, and says, "Hi, my name is whatever their name is." And I said, "Oh, hey, I'm RJ. These are all my friends. How you doing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is, the who, and the last person I introduced was my girlfriend." She's like, "Oh, okay." And then she just walked away, and I was like, I turned to everybody, I was like, "That was weird, wasn't it?" And they're like, "You do realize she was hitting on you?" I was like, "No, she just came over to have a conversation. Didn't you see? She wanted to talk and see everybody." And they're like, "No, she stood in the middle, looked at you, and you introduced everybody else." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So like that's how much
No,
I
we
don't.
definitely don't have that upgrade. No, it didn't come with us. You know what? As you were talking about that, I'm like, yeah, of course it's gonna tell me that because, like, it makes sense. But if I were there, I also would be like, yeah, she's not hitting on him. She's just like, introducing herself.
Yeah, she's nice. She's like she wants to have a conversation with everybody.
Oh my God. We're terrible at that. So yeah, that's one of the reasons I became a copywriter. And but no, what I was saying about this like different personalities is like I came up with 3 archetypes that I actually gave them a name, a personality, and so on, so we can have like a conversation, so they can help me make a decision. I know this sounds super crazy, but I mean, for me it works, like to weigh the pros and the cons, and to have like a more logical bird's eye view of the issue, a more something more related to my feelings, and then the right thing to do. So, everything combined, like what's better for me, what am I actually feeling, and what's the right thing to do. And then yeah, I think that helps. And like talking to other people as well. And then I bring all of that information and we have like a meeting. Oh my God, I'm sounding like a crazy woman. But it just works. I mean, everyone has their own thing that works for them. For me, it's this, like it really helps me make better decisions.
And what you're saying isn't crazy at all. So there's psychological practices that say that is a thing, that we have these different personality types, whatever you want to call it, right? That you slip into throughout the day. You have
Right.
worker Mechi, you have friend Mechi, you have caretaker Mechi, you have,
Yeah.
and there's, I think 5 is what they say. There's 5 major ones, and then there's like
Uh-huh.
subcategories of each and stuff like that. So that makes perfect sense to me. And hearing that, and I just wanted to give you, that reassurance that it's not crazy. You've just been able to tap
Oh,
into that side
so
of
good.
yourself and use it to your advantage. That it works. And even if there wasn't like psychological backing and stuff like that, if it works for you, do it, because that is getting you through life, and it's not hurting you, it's helping you. And so
Yeah.
embrace your weird. Let that freak flag
Yeah.
fly.
Oh, actually I do. I'm a weirdo. I mean, and this is
Yeah.
why I think also I have a little bit of, like thick skin. Growing up, I was like, I was like, after, getting bullied and all that, yes, I was struggling with, eating disorders. But at the same time, I was like, also like punk, then I was like a metalhead, then I was like darky and gothic, and just in Argentina it's not very common. Like imagine if you were in like a small town, and like we're talking years ago, like I was like 16, something like that, and going out with a corset and a big black dress, and like it was so weird because I was the only person doing that, and everyone like making fun of me. But that gave me a thicker skin, so I do not regret a single thing I did, no matter how stupid I looked, no matter how different I looked, or no matter how much they would call me a freak. I'm like, fuck that made me who I am. I'm
Yeah.
glad I was not like the rest.
And it really has, led you to be able to be a copywriter and a ghostwriter and
Right.
take a leap into all of these other parts of your life that this works for me. This is my passion and I want to follow. And that is something that when you embrace it, it becomes
Yeah.
such a massive part of your life that, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the key word, embrace it. Because, so many people, when they want to leave something behind, I do understand that for some people, if some things could be hurtful and they want to leave that behind and they want to forget it and, like just put it in, inside a drawer and forget that even exists. But I actually embraced every single thing, like the good ones, the bad ones. And I'm like, I learned what did I learn from this? Like, this was terrible. Like, I don't know. I lost my dad. That was like the worst moment in my life because he was like my best friend. And I'm like, okay, this is shit. I don't know if can I swear here?
Yep. We say
Oh, okay,
fuck,
cool.
shit, damn
Oh,
all the
I
time.
love it. So that was terrible. So but I still was like, but what is this teaching me? And it taught me so much. Like, life's too short to be like, crying and whining, and like, get up and try again. You failed? Good. Get up and try again. Tomorrow's a new day. Not even tomorrow. Like right now, you can change. You don't have to wait until Monday. You don't have to wait until next year or your birthday or whatever is special for you. Like, life is too short. And what matters in the end is, you know, the memories that you have. And like, do you have any regrets? Like, that's the thing. Like, if I wanted to dress all black and everyone was looking at me, I don't regret it because I wanted that at that time. So now looking back, I'm like, I don't regret it because I did what I wanted to do. So, and the same with other things. Like, I decided to study this or that or meet this person. It didn't work out, but what did I learn from them? And I feel like everyone who comes in our lives are like teachers, for the better or worse, but we always learn something.
Yeah. And embracing the fact that there's lessons from every person can get you to a point of being able to forgive yourself for not making a decision that would have led to a better outcome, but understanding that you made a decision based on the information that you had at the time and not the information that you have right now when you're looking back on it. And that can help you to really forgive the past or use it in the way that's going to take you forward in the best possible way. And that's part of embracing and understanding that, let's go back to our ADHD diagnosis. Understanding that, yeah, we have ADHD. That doesn't mean that we can't do the things that are challenges. It just means we can recognize those challenges and what can I do with my life to make those challenges more manageable? Or
Yeah.
can I say that I got a lot done today and I can recognize that right now I'm not going to be able to battle this executive dysfunction. I'm not going to be able to battle, the easy distractibility or the how transitions can be really difficult. So I'm just going to embrace it and just say, whatever happens, happens. And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also have seasons. Like, I feel
Mm,
like if you make the most out of them, you might have a season where you're like super exhausted and you don't have the bandwidth to hang out with friends, go out, like be social. That's okay. Like, take that time to reflect on yourself. Maybe you have a season where you're like super active, hyperactive. Well, use that for your business, use that energy to build a business, or for work or whatever you do, or any hobby that you want to achieve. Maybe you're learning a language and you're like, okay, I'm feeling like super hype right now, so yeah, I'm gonna go all in with that language. So yeah, I feel like if we see our lives as you know seasons, I think that's a great way to advance. And you know what? The other day in my podcast, I interviewed a friend, a fellow copywriter, who has had a very interesting and difficult life. She's been dealing with MS, and she's super young to have MS, so multiple sclerosis, for people who don't know what that is. And she moved to China, and she was telling me that she really enjoys reading, um and yeah, she at a moment she talked about her I don't remember the exact place. Yeah, her Houston chapter. She lived in Houston, and I was like, "Did you say chapter? Because you divide your life into chapters because you're a writer?" And she was like, "That's actually interesting." It was like, "No, but now that you mentioned that, I do notice that I have like different chapters in my life. I have like the China chapter when I lived in China. I had the Houston chapter when I lived in Houston, and I had like my 9 to 5. Now I have my new chapter where I have my own business and I get to do what I want and work with the people I want." So um and that reminds me too, one of you were asking me about the, now they're coming to my head, like the moments, my aha moments in the podcast, and one of them was that is completely related to this, is when I had with one of my best friends, who was in my podcast. That one's in Spanish, unfortunately. But yeah, she moved all the way to Australia, and she said she didn't want to have an ordinary life. She wanted to have an extraordinary life. She loves traveling, like, and she loves what she does. And she said, I look at my life, and she actually wrote a book. She I met her when I was struggling with mental health disorders and ED, because she was in the same boat. And now she's at a completely different level, and she's like blooming, and she's this beautiful person. And she told me, like, I look at my life as like I'm the writer, I'm the author, and like if I were the main character, what would I do? And that's when you realize, like, you don't have to be on the driver's seat. You can be you can write your own story. And whenever you're like at a moment where you're questioning something about your life that doesn't make you happy, what would the main character do if this was a movie? What would they do? And you have these different chapters, which I think it's a really cool concept.
and you saying that, there's a moment in my life that is really important with a really similar understanding that I came to, and it came through our mutual friend Up, who
Really? Tell me about it.
I was explaining how I felt going through um, life, and he told me, you know, we're all the main characters of our own story, and in somebody else's story, you are going to be the antagonist. You're going to be the villain, and you don't have control over that. It doesn't matter if you acted perfect or not. You are going to be the villain in somebody else's story. And so as you go through, understand that you can only be the main character of your own story. When he was telling me that, I understood what he was saying, but later on, I realized I was actually acting like a side character in my own story.
Right.
And so when I realized that I didn't fully resonate with what he said at that moment was because I was a side character. And when I started to act like the main character of my story, that was when things really started to change. And so you saying writing your own story and you are the author or the main character or both, right? And how that touched you, like, yeah, this very similar way it touched me. And sometimes it's easy to have people or have things in your life that become the star of your solar system that you orbit around. And you're so focused on them that you forget that you're actually a star of your own.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not orbiting around anyone. You're just moving through life. And when you realize that, oh, yeah, I'm a star, and everybody else is a star, it makes it going through life a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but it just allows you the understanding that when somebody moves out or something, and I'm going to use somebody else can move in, somebody else can important in your life can come into your life. It's
Right.
not going to look the same. It's not going to be the same, but that space gets taken up in a different way. And it can be painful, but it can also be hopeful. And
Right.
having those seasons like you're talking about too, it's an important way to look at it, because sometimes winter has to come through in order for
Mm-hmm.
spring to bloom.
True. Yeah. And like coming back to the chapter thing and all that, like that can help you. Like if you're at a point in your life where you want to change something, turn on the page and start writing a new chapter. You design, you call the shots. Like in the end, it's your life. And that's something that I know that for, people with ADHD or, other issues can be hard, because for some people it's easier to have others dictate their lives. But once you open your eyes to this and you're like, wait, I'm not a fucking NPC. I'm the main character. I can choose to not be an NPC in my own life. And this is something that, again, like as we're talking about this, it's incredible how many people mentioned this in my podcast. But I interviewed a guy on my podcast, Dakota Robertson. He's like, a ghostwriter as well. And he has had a very difficult life growing up. And he told me that he gamifies his life. And it's crazy how we all see this differently. You have the person that sees it as a, seasons or chapters. He sees it as a game. He was like, well, sometimes like, you can choose to be an NPC or you can choose to be the main character. And then when I'm not a gamer, but I do understand the lingo and I do understand what he meant. Like, sometimes you have a coach that could be, when you have I don't know if you play games, but, when you play a game, you have in some games, you have the person that guides the main character, that teaches them, that gives them, the tools and, how to continue. But in the end, it's up to the main character to, pass on to the next level.
Yep.
And so you have that image, could be a coach, could be a therapist, could be a book, could be a podcast, could be anything. And then you have the gadgets, and you can upgrade that, like, the tools that you use to actually get to the next level. So that could be like your journaling or your, like me talking to myself, like anything that you do to just get there. And then there's the action and trying again. If you fail, like it doesn't end there. You can try again, and you can always restart the game from where you left, and continue and try to move on to the next level.
And that's where developing your own analogies and metaphors and like taking some from people that you hear and being able to use it in your own life that is what this is all about, that I'm taking from you and that I've used too, is taking this knowledge that you can gain and seeing how it fits into your life. And okay, this fits and I can use it in this way. That's going to be the key to unlocking how I want to live and who I want to be, not the actual knowledge itself, but how I'm going to take it and use it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, was it you in my podcast who gave me a tip? I think it was you. You told me to write a story. Was it you? On a
Maybe.
journal? I think it was you.
Yes. Yeah. Because that's what I do. That's when I
And I
get the
did
most out of
it, and it
journaling.
really helped me.
Yeah. That's for those who um don't know, like I was very anti-journaling for a very long time. Like, and again, our mutual friend Up told me, I actually recommend having 2 journals. And I was like, fuck you, Up. I'm never journaling. You can't make me journal. It's never gonna happen. And then I started journaling and I made a social media video that literally said, fuck you to Up for the challenge because I'm journaling now and I hate you because I'm journaling. And he's like, hey, what did I do? And I'm like, yeah, I just had to tell you that's how I felt. But what worked for me for journaling wasn't writing about my day. I prompted journaling didn't work for me. When I started journaling and I just let my mind kind of go and I started writing short stories and actually poems, that was when journaling really made sense to me. And it actually took the feelings and the emotions and thoughts that were in my brain and made it in a way
Mm,
that allowed it to just come out and be processed and put it on. And
yeah.
that was the difference. That was the game changer.
And I imagine there's a lot more to unpack in a story or a poem, because it's like you're coming up with a story, but what's the behind of that story? Why are you writing that story? Why is that happening to the character? Or, and then you get to analyze that. I'm not a fan of journaling, to be honest, because I hate, it's not that I hate writing, it's just I do it every single day for a job. So what I do, for people who don't like journaling, I'm very kinesthetic. Like I need to walk all the time. So I just like, I go downstairs and I walk like a crazy lady around my building with the notes up, and I'm pretending to have a cold just to seem less weird. And I journal like that. Like I have like voice memos. And
Yep.
then I use this script, and that's my journal. And then I can revisit that if I want to. And it's like I'm having a conversation, but you know, it's like therapy for me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the writing stories also helps a lot. And it like allows you to be more creative too. It can show you your desires, your fears.
And writing the stories lets you get through some of those blocks that you have because you don't want to admit them about yourself. But you're
True.
writing them about somebody else. So it lets you write them down. And then you look and you're like, shit, that's me. And I haven't admitted that about myself.
Oh my God,
Fuck.
yeah. Yeah,
And what
that's
you,
me, or that's my inner child.
yes, yes. And what you just, said, I think is a big hack when it comes to journaling too, because journaling doesn't necessarily mean you have to write it down. Talking into your phone is a form of journaling. Talking to yourself can be a form of journaling. Putting my phone on video record, and for those who follow my social media and you see the videos I post, that's a form of journaling for me. Like I'm talking about the lessons that I've learned. I'm talking about
Yeah.
things that I'm going through in life, like in this moment, or I've gone through very recently. And that is a form of journaling for me. This podcast is a form of journaling. Like all of this is valid. And so whatever journaling means to you, go like follow it, find what it could be. And just make it your own, because what works for you is what works for you. And that's the only right answer, is what works for you.
Exactly. Yeah. It won't work for everyone else, but for some people it could be drawing. For some people it could be cooking, but it's just
Yes.
finding what works for you. Like
Mm,
that's the goal, finding what works for you, because maybe journaling is not for everyone else, and I totally get it. For some people it could be like hitting the gym, like for some other people it could be walking, going to the middle of the forest, away from other people, and just clearing your thoughts. Maybe like, I don't know, meditating, or even like something that helped me too, and like understand more of like my subconscious fears and stuff like that. It's just having a dream journal, and that's super interesting. And the more you do it, the more you remember your dreams. Like the first thing I do in the morning is to try to recall my dream, and then I just like write it down quickly on my notes, because then I forget. And then you look at that and you're like, wow. And I'm gonna tell you something. I just, by doing that, I realized that I dream a lot. And when I say a lot, it's like could be like 90% of my dreams, with like aliens and other worlds, and other planets. And then when you go and you do your research, what does that mean? Why am I always dreaming like, and they don't feel like scary, like, oh, an alien. It's like, no, I feel at home when I'm with these weird beings, and these other like planets. And then like doing my research, that's because I don't feel at home. And that's one of
yeah.
the reasons I actually want to move out from Argentina. But maybe, I'm going to Italy, but maybe Italy is not my home. And maybe I keep looking for the place, and maybe there's no home. Maybe I'm just a nomad and I want to keep traveling. And that's where home is, wherever I feel in the moment that I should be in. But writing down your dreams can give you many, many insights on your desires, your fears, how you feel towards other people. So that's a cool exercise.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you just
And
said
it's
about
interesting because
it
if you,
is.
sorry to interrupt, but like, it's interesting because if you think about it, how many hours from our life, like if we thought like average lifespan of someone, do we spend sleeping? And we dream, and there's a reason why we dream, because in a way is a mechanism of the mind to teach you something, to prepare you for something. Like I've had dreams where I really like, someone killed me, and in the dream I felt I was literally dying. And I woke up with that awful feeling. Or dreams where my father died, and then it was just I was preparing for those things. And then of course I made my research, and that's exactly what happens with dreams. Sometimes you dream about things that never happened to you. I don't know, let's I'm gonna give you a stupid example, but like a teenager who's never had sex, they dream like they have like sex dreams because they never
Yeah.
have it. It is preparing them. It's like a biological way of your brain to prepare you for what's going to happen. Maybe a bear will never run after you, but who knows? Maybe you dream about that, and maybe you can navigate that easily when that happens. So I really recommend writing down your dreams, because like I said again, how many hours? Like 8 hours. I'm terrible with math. Like 8 hours, 7 days a week,
A third of your life. We could
30
just break it
days.
down to that. Because if
Yeah.
you're getting 8 hours
So
of sleep, that's a third
yeah.
of your
So
day.
exactly. It's not like you're dreaming all that time, because that only happens during REM sleep, but it's a big portion of your life that you're missing out on, because if you don't write that down, you forget.
And something else you just said there too about not feeling at home, and how in your dream you're feeling at home with you know other
Aliens.
planets and an outcast, so you're feeling at home with as an outsider. What if that's your subconscious telling you that it's time to feel at home here? inside.
True.
So
Yeah,
then, and you said
could
it,
be.
anywhere that you are, that could be home.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's exactly
Yeah,
how.
that's true. And I know that because I love traveling, and I'm not the same person when I'm in a city, where I'm in the forest, when I'm in a mountain. I'm not gonna say beach because I'm not a fan of the beach. Also cities, I'm not a fan of it. Like, but I do feel at home when I'm surrounded by mountains and a peaceful place where everything shuts down. Because having ADHD, your brain is always that. Even if you're
Yes.
medicated, it's like it never shuts up.
Yep.
But the only moment when it does is when I'm surrounded by that type of nature for me. So maybe that's when, but maybe there is a way for me to find that home inside of me. But I still do believe that, and that this is just me, maybe I'm biased, but I do still think that for ADHD folks and neurodivergent people, cities are not a happy place for us because we get overwhelmed because there's too much going on. Like right now, for example, I live in front of an avenue and I'm listening to the cars. I'm also listening to the water falling down the tap that I need to fix and the neighbor upstairs. So it's a lot of inputs and I'm always constantly aware. It's like I have these antennas. And the reason why I feel like when I'm in the mountain, and maybe that's, I should visit more mountains, but that's, for example, in Patagonia here in Argentina is like super big and it's very depopulated. And sometimes you even lose like signal, but it makes you remove the noise. So you're just yourself, you know?
Mm-hmm. And that makes so much sense to me. So active noise canceling headphones, like those have been, yeah, they've been a game changer for me. But
But be careful. I gotta tell you something. The dent is fucking real. Take care of that. I have one because I have a tiny head. And so because I want to really cancel all the noise, I'm like, trying to like put it, tighter and careful. The dent is real.
but I go to the sunrise a lot and I'm in nature and I feel really great. And something that I do is I put my noise canceling earbuds in and I don't play any music. I just cancel the noise. And so the waves will be there and I'll hear it a little bit. It'll be distant, but because it's distant, it makes that sense go quiet a little bit and then I don't have so many inputs. And that's part of the piece for me is,
Yeah.
and that's what you're talking about with like going to the mountains where
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah. Because
I
if
still
you do
have
that
those, but
in the city, if I did that here, I can't. Whenever I want to achieve that thing, like no inputs, I put like background, not music, but like, I don't
like
know,
brown noise.
brown noise or sometimes like rain noises and that
Yeah.
type of stuff. Because I do need that, you cannot be always consuming content and thinking and doing stuff. Like at one point you really need to shut down and not
Yep.
just sleeping. Sometimes you need to do it awake. So,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
for us it's hard. Like if I had to sit here and like meditate, I wouldn't be able to do it because there's too many things going on in my head that it's just not gonna happen.
And I think that's going on a tangent. I think that's what people who don't have ADHD and meditate, it's so hard for them to grasp because they're like, no, it's not the turning off your thoughts, it's focusing on your thoughts. And it's like, you don't understand. We have thousands of thoughts coming at us at once. We can't just focus on one
On one.
or even two or three. Like that's not going to happen. And so
That's true.
meditating for us looks different and it's just slowing it down. That's our
Yeah.
meditation. And I found that mostly the ways that I can do that is yoga, like Tai Chi, sometimes doing like my Kung Fu forms, and walking. Like those are the ways
Movement.
where, yep, that movement has to be incorporated. If it's not,
Yeah,
I can't achieve it just sitting and being there.
true. I think it's an ADHD thing. I don't think it's complete ADHD because, you some folks don't have the hyperactivity, but maybe you and I have it. For me, I need to be moving. So I
Mm-hmm.
walk or, go to the gym, lift weights or hike if I have the chance to. I mean, not here in Buenos Aires because there's not many places to hike, but when I go on vacation, like hiking, trekking, doing that kind of stuff. Swimming, like if you have a pool and if you want to stay calm and you don't want to move and you want to actually feel, the peacefulness. I go to the pool at night when there's no one else and I just float and it's crazy. That's the only moment I can actually like be still and think and I get the best ideas. But because it's the middle of the night, there's no one else there. And because of the water, you don't hear the noises outside.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know how to float, try it. It's really good. Or you can go to one of those, what do you call it?
The
This
sensory
it's like a
deprivation
yeah,
tanks.
that would
I
be
was just gonna
amazing.
bring that
I
up to see if you've heard of that and if you'd ever tried it.
Yeah, I want to do it. But I have to yet find a place that does it here. I want to try it.
At
Have you tried it?
No, but there's a place that just opened in the city I live in. And so
Mm,
one day soon I'm going to do that and just enjoy myself.
yeah, yeah,
That'll be fun.
definitely. Tell me how how it feels and if it's worth
Yeah.
it. I imagine it would be.
I think, yeah, I could really see how, especially for us, that would be just like, honestly, I could see it either like really freaking somebody out or being the most at peace that you've been at
Or
since you can
both.
remember.
Or
Yeah.
both. I feel like I would freak out at first and then like ease in and have like a, an aha moment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good point too. That's a really good point. That's the duality of life. You can have both. You don't have to have either or. It's usually
True.
both and. It's not very often either or.
That's true. Yeah. But yeah, it's in the end, it's finding what works for you. It could be anything. Maybe you like playing piano, painting, being with animals. Like it's just finding what works.
That is the truth. So, Mechi, what do you think has been the most important tool for you in your um, self-discovery journey that you've been on?
Mm. Um, so remember I told you I'm a ghostwriter and I had the luck to ghostwrite a book from an amazing therapist. I'm not gonna give her name because as a ghostwriter, I write and I disappear. So I'm
Yep.
not allowed to give their names. But she gave me like the talking points and I had, a conversation with her before writing her book. And she was like, yeah, when I talk about this, and when I talk about that. And I got introduced to many psychology topics I didn't know about. And one of them that she mentioned was the concept of radical acceptance that I never heard before. And it's basically like trying to accept everything you are, like the flaws, the good, the bad, the ugly. But as I was writing that down, and I was also comparing that to the stories she sent me from her um, clients and the transformations, I was like, this makes total sense. And I began to accept many things that, before, they sat really awkwardly within me, like, is this normal that I do this, or am I crazy, or I have this, like, I don't want to film myself because I have acne, or I gain weight, whatever. And then, like, when you accept yourself, you kind of let go of those labels you put on yourself. And when you let go of those labels, they no longer define you, and you choose what really defines you. And when you do that, you're able to, like, let go of that past self. And when you actually do that, I'm going to give you an example. So I told you I struggled a lot with binge eating. In a way, it was because ADHD, the dopamine for me was like, the snacks. And of course, the medication helped, definitely. But sometimes I don't even take my meds. And I'm not like, I don't have that constant, need to go and grab a snack to continue working or to stay productive. So, once I understood that and I fully embraced that, okay, this is a coping mechanism. Where's it coming from? And I began to ask the questions. And, I was raised by a mom from an Italian family. So you can imagine there was a lot of food. Like, food was like, you did something well, here's some food. You did something wrong, here's some food. Don't cry, baby girl, here's some food. Something terrible is happening outside. Like, there was a time, there was a burglar who tried to, like, he was actually in our home, but he was in the patio. And my mom was like, and by that time I was like 7 years old. So, like, one of those stages in life where things really, form you as a human being, your personality. And we didn't have a phone back then, and we lived in the middle of nowhere. So there was no one to call. And this guy was threatening my mom. He was like trying to get inside our home. He was escaping from the police. And this is the craziest thing. You know what she did? She made me a sandwich. Mind you, the guy was trying to get inside. And I don't have any brothers or sisters, so it was just me and my mom. My dad was working. There was no way to contact him, call the police, anything. And we didn't have neighbors. She made me a sandwich. She gave me cookies. And she hid me under my bed. And she said, baby girl, no matter what happens, no matter what you hear, don't come out. Stay here. But the first thing she did was a sandwich. Now I understand why she did that. Maybe she thought, like, if this guy kills me, then, maybe she stays, like, locked in, or something happens and she starves. I don't know what her train of thought was. And then she went outside and actually kicked the shit out of the guy, because my mom is like, a mama bear. And then she started screaming, and someone, which was really strange to have, that it didn't happen, but someone walked by and she was like, call the police. And the police came, but she handled that. But the first thing she did was a sandwich. And my entire life, every time if I'm mourning, if I'm anxious, if I'm feeling happy, I celebrate with food, I cry with food, and so it became naturally, it would become like a coping mechanism. So yeah, that's one of the things. It's a crazy story, but it kind of defined me in a way. But then when I decided not to have it define me, like, I'm not a binge eater. I can choose to actually address what is going on. So before I would be about to binge, and this applies for everything, like people who smoke, people who drink. Before you go and grab the drink or the pastry or that thing that it's not good for your body. Like, for example, I cannot have gluten, and, like, I'm a sucker for anything with gluten. So whenever I'm, like, about to grab that, first, don't bring it into your home. But if you happen to have it, ask yourself, am I actually hungry? Why do I want to eat right now? Like, and be mindful, like, why? How am I feeling? Like, check in with yourself and see, am I bored? Am I, and me being ADHD, being bored is painful. Like, it's one of the worst feelings ever. That's why I'm always doing something. And again, this is something I need to check in, because there's a reason why, if it's not the food, then it's, working and, creating content and stuff like that. So it's really sitting down and be like, okay, and it's not going to happen all at the same time. Like, I'm not going to be able to fix the eating problem and then the workaholism. You don't do everything at the same time. So I basically swapped the eating for the working, but at least I'm being mindful of, why am I eating so well? Maybe I go to the, working. But then when that, binge eating is completely under control, and I no longer think about, like, I want to eat, I want to eat, I want to eat, I want to eat. It's no longer happening. Now I need to address, why do I need to be constantly working or producing something or being productive? Why is it that I feel that urge, But, you go step by step.
Yep. And that is like the process that I work people through is, what are you looking for from this? And one thing that I ask myself, especially when I find myself really easily distracted, what am I avoiding?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that I'm avoiding that I am being easily distracted right now? And can I do it probably quicker than what I think I can? All right, we're going to sit with this pain and try to figure out if I can get through this quicker than I can. I'm just going to give myself 10 minutes. 10 minutes, we're going to start it, see where it goes. Next thing I do is I look up and it's like 30 minutes later and I'm done with it. And it's like, I feel better now. I'm not as distracted. I can move on to something
Yeah.
different. Cool. That's not always the case, but along the lines of the questions that you're asking yourself, that is one that I started asking myself, what am I avoiding?
Yeah.
And typically it's something, if I'm going to be honest with myself.
Yeah. And if you're avoiding something, just like take the first step. Even if it's like, let's say you have to write, I don't know, maybe in copywriter, I have to write an entire, homepage, let's say, and I don't want to do it. So, okay, why don't I want to do it? Maybe I'm not taking care of myself and I haven't eaten, or I haven't showered, or I need to do something. Okay, I'm going to address that first. Then I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to look at, the brief. I'm not going to start writing. I'm just going to look at the brief. I'm going to look at the competition. I'm going to do some analysis. And then, when you start writing, and then, after the first copy that you write, then you're like, oh, I can do this. Or, when they say, like, if you want to start the gym, like, start with putting on the shoes. And then tomorrow, maybe you walk up to the gym and then you come back, but at least you went. And then the next day, you actually get in the gym. Maybe you do a few reps. Great. And then maybe the next day, you actually complete the entire, routine. So it's going bit by bit. You don't have to finish it end to end. Like, you can at least start, and that's better than nothing.
And that's about the progress and not the perfection.
Yeah, because then it's like analysis paralysis.
Exactly. And a part of the radical self-acceptance is starting where you are and not where you wish you were.
Yeah, definitely.
I love that. And I love what you talked about with that radical self-acceptance too, because that is such a massive part of starting where you are, being who you are, being where you are, and not where you wish you were. And when you're stuck with where you wish you were, it's really hard to start anything.
Yeah, imagine if you want to climb a mountain, you want to be at the top. You cannot be at the top if you don't start at the base. So,
Yeah.
and if you're like Oh, but I just want to be at the top. You were just looking at that. It's like so high and it feels so unconquerable.
Yep.
Guess what? When you start walking and you're like halfway there, it doesn't look that unconquerable. And that applies to everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a lot of life lessons that people can take away just from the past 15 minutes that
Yeah. And that's why I love like trekking and climbing, because that's exactly the train of thought that you have. Like you think you cannot make it. I'm not like a trained hiker or a trekker or whatever you call it. I'm not.
Mountaineer.
But yeah, I'm not
I think it is a
trained.
mountaineer.
Yeah, mountaineer. I'm not trained, but I try. And I've done like here in Argentina is cool because like we have the like the mecca of trekking where people get ready to to climb Mount Everest. And we have like the second biggest mountain too. So there's a lot of that here. And I have not, of course, done the big ones, but I've done a few that were like too advanced for me. And you know what? Something that helped me, I remember I was with the group because they had to guide us because like you get lost, and it was actually it was too high and it was advanced. And that was the first time I did like an advanced trek. And at one point when we reached the middle, the mountaineer guides, they were like, they looked at the group and they were like, guys, from here onwards, it's your choice. It's gonna get hard. You're gonna have to climb rocks. It will get hard. There's like you got the what do you call it? Oh my gosh. The risk. No, it completely left my brain right now.
Like the
Like when you
cliffs.
look at, yeah, but like just you look at that, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, that.
The
And they were like,
danger.
you decide, you want to continue or you want to stay? And half the group left. And then we continued. And as we kept on going and it kept on getting harder and harder, people kept coming back, And then we were like 20 people, I want to say. And then only like, I think like 13 of us made it. And in the meantime, it's like, all these people like, getting back and being like, no, I can't do this, I can't do this. And I was like, I remember I was at a point where I was scared because I did not have the, the training or the experience. And it was getting like super slippery. And you looked at it right there, and like it was like a 2,000-meter fall. But the problem was that I was looking down and I was not looking at where I wanted to get to, and I was not focusing on the beautiful sight that I had around me. And something that kept me going was something that App said in one of my podcasts. And he said, I can't remember exactly what he says, but at that time I remembered it like really like quote by quote, because it happened not long ago. But he said something along the lines of like, the only person that's stopping you from doing what you want is you. The only person like saying that you can't do that is you. And I was like, I remember that. And I was like, he's right. I'm going to continue. I got this. I can do it. And I did it.
And how much pride did you get when you got to the end of that?
Oh my God, it was amazing. But you know what the best was? It was not getting to the top. Actually, I enjoyed the process more. I really did. Like the top was beautiful. I mean, you got to like, this beautiful place where you see like there's a glacier and you have the mountains and the lake, and it's precious. But we only sat there and we ate something and we had to come back because it was like a 8-hour walk like downstairs. So yeah. So I enjoyed the process even more. And it was tiring. Like, I was like, "Ah, when are we getting there? When are we getting there?" But I enjoy that more than when I look back on that, what I remember the most is the struggle, not the wow, I made it, I'm on top of the mountain. No,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that.
And that lesson of when you let go of focusing on the destination or where you're not, and you
Or the
start to,
dangers, like me looking down and be
yeah,
like, oh my God, I'm fucked.
yeah.
No, just
And
look
you,
where you are, next step, like step by step, and you'll
mm,
eventually get there.
and you embrace that journey too. And you just embrace where you are. That's a lesson that that's life.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
we keep trying to focus on these different destinations. The only destination, honestly, is death. So why not just focus on where you are and that next
Mm-hmm.
step?
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's true. Like it's coming for all of us. So we might as well live life while we can
Yeah.
and be that main character. Because if you're in your deathbed, you really if you don't ever become the main character when you're in your deathbed, I assure you, you're gonna regret it. And I think
Yep.
regret is like the worst thing. And my mom, she worked as a what do you call it in English? Like fuck, I forgot. Uh, paleo. I even forgot. Palliative, is that how you say it? Palliative care,
Yes. Yep.
like
Yes.
last stage, like people who are
Yes.
like, okay, they're dying, so like just
I
take
think
care of them.
hospice, but it's also called palliative. Like, yes.
Yeah, palliative care. And she saw too many people die in front of her. And she told me, and then I also read there's like a famous blog post from a nurse, and they all say that people, the thing that they regret is the things they didn't do, not the things that they did. Like, sometimes maybe you're overthinking, like, oh, should I talk to this person? Should I move to this country? Should I quit this job? Should I ask for a raise? But then you don't regret, not doing that and avoiding the awkward moment. You regret not doing it.
Right. Right. And
And you don't need to be on your deathbed to notice that. Like, look back, like, the past, I don't know, 15 years, and think about the things you regret. I assure you, there are things you did not do, most of them.
oh yeah, that's when you stop and you're honest with yourself, that is absolutely the case.
Mm-hmm.
Mechi, this conversation, I knew it was going
Keep
to be
it going on
amazing,
and
and
on.
it absolutely was. If people want to keep up with you, where are the best places to do that?
They can find me on Instagram at Mechi Mansisha. It's there in the name, in the Zoom call. Or yeah, I'm gonna leave you the links because I have a weird name. But I'm at Mechi Mansisha everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, my podcast. Like, if you look at, if you look up Mechi Mansisha on YouTube, you're gonna find my podcast. You're gonna find my podcast with RJ too. So yeah.
Yeah, and we'll put those links in the bio, so you'll be able to find those and click over.
For sure.
And God, like this, such a wealth of knowledge and wisdom, and just fun. Like I said at the beginning of this, we could go on for 4 hours and just have fun talking and sharing
That's the cool
stories.
thing
And
about the podcast. We can
it
talk
is,
about fun stuff
it
and
really
get
is.
deep.
I appreciate you coming on. This was so much fun. And um, people go follow Mechi, because the content is, it's so good and it's so applicable, and um, it's just fun. You get to have some fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Even if they're not in business. I always say, for me, business and travel, they're like a fast route to, self-discovery, at least for
yeah.
me.
And I really do see those like it really does lead you to find yourself doing those things. So thank you so much
Mhm.
for joining us. Really appreciate it. And for those who have been listening, you know what? Share this episode with a friend, with somebody you know who could benefit from it. Hit that subscribe button, leave us a review. I would love that. And you know what? Let's try to be better tomorrow than we were today, because at least we don't make it, we tried. Have a great week, everybody. I love you.
Thank you, RJ, for having me.